Today I will be presenting on the past perfect. That is the time before that time. And I will also be reviewing other past tenses. So let's get started with other past tenses. Specifically, we will be looking at the simple past and the present perfect. So, however, before I start, let me introduce this diagram here. This diagram here is called a verb tense diagram. Okay, it shows us the past, present, and future tenses on a timeline and how they work in a timeline. Okay, and how those actions spread themselves out on a timeline. Make it easier to understand the different verb tense and verb and aspect tenses. Moving forward now, let's talk about the meaning and form of the simple past. The meaning of the simple past is for actions that occurred in the past. Okay, for example, she passed the test. Okay, sometime before the present, she passed the test. Okay, the form is the past form of the verb, so past, ed. Okay, here we can see ed. Okay, past with an ed. Now, of course, there are regular and irregular past tense verbs. The regular ones have ed, and the irregular ones have a change in spelling, such as have had, get got, bring brought, think thought, swim swam. Okay, but here I'm using the ed. Now, let's review some of the uses of the simple past. The uses, okay? The first use is for completed actions. These are actions that were completed in the past, okay? Before the present, they were completed in the past. For example, she passed a test. This action was completed before the present in the past. The next one is past habits or past routines. These are actions that repeated in the past. Actions that repeated in the past. For example, she studied every day. This action is a daily repetition. Okay, she studied every day, but it's a daily repetition in the past. The next one is for a time when the next use for the simple past is for when the time of the event is known. Okay, for example, here yesterday she saw her score. Okay, we know the time of the event, which was yesterday. Okay, so we use the simple past. She saw her score. Let's look now at the meaning and form of the present perfect. The meaning: actions that occurred sometime in the past. Okay, so for example, sometime in the past. For example, I cooked, I baked the pie, I left the pie on top of my desk, I went out, I came back, and I found that my family has eaten the pie. They have eaten the pie. I don't know when, but sometime in the past, they have eaten the pie. Okay? So we would say this: have eaten. We use that for when the action occurred sometime in the past, but we don't specify that time. We use the auxiliary verb have, so have eaten, and we use the past participle form of the verb eat, eaten, have eaten. Okay? Moving forward now, the uses of the present perfect. We use the present perfect for actions that began in the past and continue to the present. So here it is, an action that began in the past and continues to the present. For example, since 2016, he has lived in LA. Okay? Starts in 2016, continues to the present. For actions that affect the present, for example, for an action that affects the present. So, for example, he has left a mess. Sometime in the past, he made a mess, and he has left the mess, and it affects the present. A mess is still there. And for recently completed actions with just. Okay, it's recently completed. As you can see right here, here's the present. Just recently, I have just finished my homework. Just recently, I have just finished my homework. Okay, let's now talk about the past perfect. The past perfect is used for a past event that occurred before another past event. Okay, So this is the past perfect right here, the first event. Okay. For the later event, we use the simple past. She passed the test. For the first event, we use the past perfect. She had studied hard for the test. So she had studied hard for the test, and therefore she passed the test. Okay? Had studied, past perfect for the first event, past, simple past for the later event. Now let's talk about the past perfect, the form of the past perfect. The form, it's kind of like the present perfect, but instead we use the past form of the auxiliary verb have. So have, had. She had eaten the pie. Not have eaten, had eaten. And we use the past participle form of the verb eat, eaten. So en. She had eaten the pie. Okay? So we basically take the present perfect, have eaten, and we shove it to the past, had eaten. Now, let's look at some of the uses. There are two uses. The first use is an action that occurred before another action in the past. It's already mentioned. So before he passed the test, he had studied hard. Okay, he had studied hard before he passed the test. Okay, and we don't know, sometime in the past, but before he studied, he had passed the test. The other one is for unreal conditionals for past actions. So for example, if I had been born a king. I wasn't born a king, but if I had been born a king. All right. So that concludes this. Let's quickly summarize. Use the past perfect. The past perfect is used for past event that occurred before another past event. Before he passed the test, he had studied hard. The form of the past perfect is like the present perfect, but shoved to the past. So we use the past form of the auxiliary verb have, had, and we use the past participle form of a verb eat, eaten. So he had eaten the pie. Had. Okay. The other one is we have another use, and that's for unreal conditionals for past actions. So if I had been born a king, I would be rich. But had been born. I wasn't, but if I had been. This concludes this presentation. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you have any thoughts or concerns, please leave me an email, and I look forward to seeing you in class.